Hello, family. Welcome to Stories with Pablo. Please subscribe and leave us a like. It means a lot to us. Also, share this video with your friends and loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss our future videos. Thank you for doing so. Please subscribe and leave us a like. It means a lot to us. Also, share this video with your friends and loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss our future videos. Thank you for doing so. The late afternoon sunlight filtered softly through the lace curtains of Lina's apartment, casting delicate golden patterns across the faded tiles. The warm air carried the scent of jasmine from the courtyard below, blending with a faint aroma of hibiscus tea cooling on the windowsill. Outside, the city stirred with the sounds of distant laughter, barrows rattling along cobblestone streets, and the melodic call of vendors peddling fresh bread. In the heart of this garden of light and shadow, Lina stood facing the full-length mirror, her dark eyes steady yet glimmering with a tender vulnerability. Her hand rested lightly on her belly, the smallest hint of a curve beneath the folds of her soft cream shawl. 4 weeks now. This secret had blossomed quietly within her, a fragile pulse of life and hope, offering a future she dared to dream of. She swallowed hard, anticipation and fear gnawing at the edges of her calm. Today, she would tell Elias. The weight of unspoken words had grown too heavy, and she needed to free them into the air. Lina was a woman who carried her heritage in every line of her face, every ripple of a quiet strength. Her skin radiated the rich earth tone of the sun, kissed by years of laughter and tears alike. Her thick black curls tumbled down her back wildly, crowned with a few early silver strands, a badge of her lineage and the pressures she bore. At 29, she was both a child of tradition and a woman yearning to redefine what it meant to be loved. Her family's expectations hummed beneath her skin, persistent and insistent. To be a wife, to bear children, to anchor a legacy, these roles had been etched into her from the day she could understand their importance. Yet Lina had fought to find space for her own dreams, not just to belong to a lineage, but to live, to love, and to be seen. Elias entered her world like a sudden storm, brilliant and chaotic. Tall and lean, his presence was impossible to ignore. His sea-green eyes held depths that both invited and repelled, haunted by shadows he never fully named. Born of privilege and expectation, he was a man whose internal battles often left him distant, conflicted, and sometimes unbearably silent. She had loved him fiercely, despite the growing distance between them. Today, she hoped, might be the moment to bridge the chasm. When the sound of the front door clicking open drifted up the stairs, Lina's breath hitched. Elias stood at the threshold moments later, shedding his jacket. The sight of him anchoring the room sent an odd wave of calm through her chest. "Lina, are you here?" His voice was softer than usual, tentative. "In the living room," she answered, forcing steady calm into her voice. He approached slowly, sitting beside her on the worn couch, the air between them charged. Her hand instinctively went to her stomach, a silent signal of the news she had rehearsed countless times. "Elias," she began, voice trembling just enough to betray her nose, "I have to tell you something important." Before the words could fully escape, her phone buzzed sharply. Elias glanced at the screen, reading a message from his close friend Karim. Apologizing softly, he stood and stepped into the hallway, closing the door behind him, but not completely. Lina's pulse quickened, curiosity and dread twisting inside her. The soft murmur of voices floated through the slightly ajar door. She leaned in, hearing Elias' voice, low, fractured. "I can't have a child with her," he said, each word a shard piercing the stillness. A cold shock rippled through her. Her hand froze. Her breath caught as though time itself had fractured. "She's not the one," he murmured, voice shaking. "This isn't what I want." The weight of his confession crushed her dreams. The warmth she had carried so carefully began to unravel in her chest, replaced by a void of disbelief and silent pain. Lina slumped back against the couch, tears stinging the corners of her eyes, though she fought to keep them from falling. Memories flooded her. The tender night spent dreaming aloud with Elias, the subtle shift in his gaze over the past months, the sharp edge of distance she had learned to hide from friends and family alike. Her thoughts turned to the women who came before her, grandmothers and mothers who bore silent suffering with grace and resilience. Would she be like them, alone with a secret, waiting for a love that might never come? Through the door, the comforting voice of Karim attempted to soothe Elias. "You don't want to be the villain," Elias. But you have to be honest with yourself and with her. Elias ran a hand through his dark hair, voice raw. I'm scared, not just about the baby, but what it means for the rest of my life. What if I lose myself? What if I'm no good at being what everyone wants? Better to face it now, Karim said gently. The truth will hurt, yes, but it also can set you free, both of you. The door shifted, and Elias returned, his face a storm of shame and regret. Lina wiped the last tears from her cheeks, bracing herself to witness the man she loved confront the truth and to find her own strength in the aftermath. Lina's heart hammered in her chest as Elias returned to the living room. The familiar weight of his presence now mingled with an invisible tension that seemed to crackle between them. He paused by the door, his eyes not quite meeting hers, shadowed with a turmoil she could not yet fully name. The silence stretched, thick and fragile, waiting to be broken. I'm sorry, Lina, he finally said, voice low and heavy. I didn't mean for you to hear that. Her lips pressed together as she gathered her courage. You were talking about me, about us, what you don't want. Elias, why didn't you tell me this before? His jaw tightened, and he looked away toward the window, seeking refuge in the fading light. I wanted to protect you. And myself. I thought maybe I could change, or that the fear would pass. But it hasn't. The confession hung in the air like smoke, and Lina felt the rising heat of anger swell beneath the cold shock. Change? You want me to believe this is just fear? What about the hope we shared? The plans we whispered? Elias swallowed hard, rubbing the back of his neck. It's not that simple. You know my family, their expectations, their dreams for me. I feel trapped. His gaze finally met hers, raw and urgent. I'm afraid, Lina, afraid that I'll lose everything, my future, my freedom. And I didn't want to drag you into a life I'm not ready to live. Tears began to spill over the edges of her eyes now, but she refused to let them fall openly. You could have trusted me. We were supposed to be a team. Maybe I was a coward, he admitted, voice breaking. I'm sorry. For a moment, the room held their fractured love in brittle silence, like a fragile vase cracked but not yet shattered. Lina's mind raced back through their years together, the sweet tenderness of their first glance at that spring festival, the quiet evening spent tangled in stories and dreams, the gentle brush of his hand against hers beneath the mango tree in her grandmother's courtyard. And yet, everywhere those memories bloomed, there were shadows too, times he pulled away unexpectedly, moments of silence filled with unsaid fears, the glimmer of hesitation she had tried to overlook. Now, those shadows seemed to stretch wide, swallowing the light. Do you want me to leave? She asked softly. He shook his head vehemently. No, I want to figure this out. But I need time to understand who I am outside the expectations that define me. Lina nodded slowly, her mind teetering between the depth of her love and the pain of betrayal. Then, we will have to face this together, but not without truth. Elias reached out, tentatively, and brushed his fingers along her cheek. I promise, no more secrets. From now on. She closed her eyes, allowing herself to believe him for a moment, while the sounds of the city seeped steadily through the windows, life moving forward, and so must they. The hours that followed were filled with quiet conversation, delicate and raw. In the kitchen, Lina brewed more hibiscus tea, each sip a small comfort as they unpacked the complicated knots of their future. She spoke of her fears, of being alone and carrying a child, of facing judgment from family and community. Elias confessed his own vulnerabilities, the pressure to live a prescribed path, the weight of legacy. Between them were words both spoken and withheld, a delicate dance of truth and love seeking balance. That night, Lina lay awake under the gentle sway of curtains, the moonlight tracing silver patterns on the ceiling. Her hand rested again against her belly, the tiny life growing quietly within her, unknowing of the maelstrom of feelings above. Would this child be a bridge to healing or a fracture too deep to mend? Could love survive the fissures that fear and doubt had carved? The questions tangled in her mind, yet beneath them a steadfast heartbeat whispered a hope, fragile, yes, but alive. That night, Lina sat by the small kitchen window, her hands folded around the warmth of the hibiscus tea. Outside, the stars burned quietly in the ink-black sky, distant and serene, so removed from the storm twisting inside her chest. She could still hear Elias' words echoing, "I can't have a child with her." The bluntness of it felt like shattered glass beneath her skin. Yet beneath the ache of betrayal, a complex tapestry of memories unfurled. She remembered the moment before love's bloom, vibrant, raw, unguarded. Elias had appeared first under the blooming almond tree at the university campus, where the whole city seemed to pulse with energy and youthful hope. Lina was sketching quietly in her notebook, capturing the morning light kissing the sprawling banyan tree nearby, when he had approached. "I've never seen someone so focused," Elias said, voice laced with curiosity as he glanced over her shoulder. She glanced up, startled by his sudden nearness, the gentle tilt of his head as he studied the lines of her drawing. "I'm just trying to capture something beautiful," Lina replied, cheeks flushing under his gaze. And so began the slow unraveling of youth's reckless intimacy, stolen afternoons beneath mango trees, shared secrets whispered late into the night, the tentative weaving of futures they dared imagine together. Elias had been different then, a man unburdened by the heavy mantle of expectations, or perhaps just better at hiding those shadows. He spoke often of escape, of rewriting the stories handed down from fathers to sons, of building something new with Lina. But over time, those dreams had grown fragile, the weight of legacy pressing in. His nights grew longer with worry, his smiles more forced. For Lina, the change was coded in delay, unanswered texts, silence replacing laughter, the quiet withdrawal of warmth. She had hoped it was a passing storm. As dawn brushed softly through the curtains, Lina's thoughts returned to the present. She wondered how she would tell her family, the proud matriarch who had stitched her birth dress by hand, the aunts who would whisper fiercely about honor and duty, the cousins who eagerly anticipated the next generation in their tightly knit clan. Would they accept her child? Would Elias' hesitation poison their joy? She drained the last of the tea and prepared to face the day, the fragile secret nestled like a flame within her. Later that morning, the apartment was heavy with quiet tension when Elias returned from work. He moved with a haunted look, fingers nervously tracing the collar of his shirt. Lina met his gaze, the unsaid questions between them like sparks waiting to ignite. "Have you thought more about us? About everything?" Lina asked, voice fragile but firm. Elias exhaled slowly. "Every moment. I'm torn between what I want and what I fear. But I want to try, for you, for the child." Relief and doubt warred within Lina. "I'm scared to," she whispered. "But this secret, this life inside me, it gave me strength. I want us to figure this out as a family." He nodded, reaching for her hand, their fingers entwining tightly as if to hold their disparate worlds together. Over the next days, as Lina navigated her pregnancy in secret from all but Elias, their relationship tilted on an uneasy axis. Moments of tenderness clashed with long silences. Cultural expectations, family obligations, and personal doubts swirled around them like an unrelenting tide. One afternoon, in the crowded marketplace where scents of spices and freshly baked bread filled the air, Elias and Lina walked side by side, a fragile unity among the bustling life. "We should tell them soon," Lina said softly, watching Elias' face carefully. He glanced at her, a flicker of fear crossing his handsome features. "Soon, but not yet." The unborn child between them was no longer just a secret. It was a symbol of hope and rupture, binding and unraveling all that they knew. The hum of the city felt heavier now, as though every breath Lina took carried the weight of her secret, and the fractures growing between her and Elias. The promise she had once seen in his eyes was now clouded by a distant storm, and the walls she had tried to build around her heart threatened to crumble. It was a morning after the week-long delicate truce they had managed to hold, after whispered apologies and late-night talks, careful smiles, and fleeting touches that barely reached beneath the surface. Today, the fragile calm would be shattered. Lina stood before the narrow dressing mirror in her childhood bedroom, the small room she had returned to after the collapse of her apartment sanctuary. The walls were hung with embroidered cloths from her mother's loom and photographs that spoke of generations before her. The house vibrated with the low murmur of a family going about their day, unaware of the storm swirling under their roof. Her fingers traced the subtle swell below her ribs, the new life growing quietly and innocently despite everything. She looked at her reflection, searching for strength amid vulnerability. Her eyes were heavy with sleepless nights, her skin paler than before, and dark circles grazed the corners of her eyes. "Lina," came a soft call from the doorway. She turned to see her mother, Amina, her face a map of years etched with wisdom and love. Her eyes softened as they took in Lina's fragile figure. "You been quiet this morning," Amina observed. "Are you well?" Lina managed a small smile but shook her head, pushing a loose curl from her face. "I'm tired, Mama," Lina answered truthfully. Amina stepped closer, the scent of sandalwood surrounding her as she sat beside her daughter on the small wooden chair. "You carry much, my child. Not just a child within you, but the invisible burdens we women bear." Lina swallowed hard, emboldened by her mother's words. "There's something I must tell you, but I fear what you will think." Her mother's eyes did not waver. "Lina, whatever the truth, I will stand beside you." That afternoon, they sat together in the quiet courtyard bath in golden light. Lina began to unravel the story, from the moment she discovered her pregnancy, to the confession she had overheard from Elias, to the mounting fears rooted deeper than either of them admitted. Amina listened without interruption, her fingers weaving her daughter's hair into a loose braid. "My daughter," she said softly, "you are stronger than you know, but strength is not without truth. You must face what lies before you." Lina nodded, feeling the weight of her lineage settle on her like a mantle. Heavy, yes, but not without its power. Meanwhile, across the sprawling city, Elias found himself battling ghosts from his own past, the expectations of his father, a man whose approval weighed more heavily than love, and the fears long silent within the chambers of his soul. He sat alone in his father's study in the family home, the walls lined with books on history, law, and lineage. His father's voice echoed, demanding the continuation of a legacy greater than any one man, a voice that felt as unyielding and ancient as the city itself. "Your duty is to that future, Elias, not to uncertain whims of passion." His father had warned years ago, but now those words bore down upon him like chains. Elias felt trapped, not just within the expectations, but within himself. Back in the courtyard, Lina and Amina prepared a meal in silence, their movements familiar and grounding. The clatter of pots and chopping of vegetables became a meditation, the rhythm reminding Lina of the life and culture surrounding her. "You must tell Elias the truth as well," Amina advised carefully, "but at your own pace. You are in charge of your story." The sun dipped low, filling the room with burning amber and casting long shadows. Lina understood the truth in her mother's words. The path ahead was hers to navigate, in whatever way she could find courage. That evening, Lina's phone buzzed. It was a message from Karim, Elias' closest confidant. "We should talk. About Elias. About you." Her breath caught. Hesitation warred with the impulse to respond quickly. After a moment, she typed back a simple, "When and where?" Within minutes, a plan was set to meet at a quiet cafe known for its jasmine scent and soft music, a place away from prying eyes. The following day, Lina found herself seated across from Karim, a man whose warmth and seriousness were both comforting and unsettling. Karim's eyes held the weight of someone who had seen pain without flinching and understood complexity without judgment. "Lina," Karim began gently, "I've watched Elias struggle. You don't deserve to be caught in the middle of that." Lina looked down at her hands, feeling the vulnerability ripple beneath her skin. "I don't know what to do. Sometimes I think he loves me, and other times I hear him say things like those words I overheard." Karim sighed, rubbing his temples. He's been frightened, not just about the baby, but about everything this means for him, for his future, his freedom, even his identity. But fear doesn't excuse hurting the person you love. She met his gaze, searching for clarity. "What do I do, then?" Karim paused, then said, "Trust your instincts. Don't hide your truth. He has to face it, yes, but you must first be honest with yourself about what you are willing to forgive and what you will not accept." Later, Lina walked the bustling streets alone, the familiar sights and smells of the old city, the spice markets, the women bargaining in rapid-fire chatter, the children racing through narrow alleys, grounding her in the present, and yet highlighting how tenuous her future had become. She paused outside a small shrine draped with vibrant fabrics and flickering candles, the air thick with incense and whispered prayers. With shaking hands, she lit a candle and whispered a plea, not just for herself, but for the child growing within her. "Give me strength," she prayed. "Show me the way." At home that night, Elias paced the length of his father's study, the wall seeming to close in on him. Between duty, love, and fear, he felt as though he wore a mask cracking beneath the weight of truth. His phone lit up with Lina's name. "We need to talk." He knew that the fragile barriers were coming down, and whatever happened next would change everything. The morning light filtered through the linen curtains of Elias' family home, cutting slanted shapes across the polished floors. The atmosphere was thick, not with the usual quiet dignity of the space, but with a brittle tension of impending confrontation. Elias sat at the heavy oak dining table alone, the surface gleaming beneath the silver tray of untouched breakfast. His hands trembled slightly as they wrapped around a warm cup of coffee, the bitter aroma grounding him in the moment. Today, he knew, would be the day the fragile threads of his relationship with Lina either snapped or mended. Lina arrived shortly after, her footsteps echoing down the marble hallway. She had chosen to meet him here under the weight of unspoken words, carrying inside her the secret that had already rewritten both their futures. The moment she entered the room, Elias looked up. The warmth she longed to find there was clouded by exhaustion and resolve. "Lina," he said quietly, voice cautious, "I'm glad you came." She nodded, meeting his gaze with equal parts sorrow and strength. "There's no more time for waiting. We need to speak honestly about everything." He set his cup down, leaning forward slightly. "I'm listening." Her voice faltered for only a moment before she spoke. "I'm pregnant, Elias. Our child is coming. I am no longer alone in this." He appeared to search her face for the truth, then slowly nodded, confirmation settling in his eyes. "I know. I've known." A silence stretched between them thick as a wall surrounding them. "I was going to tell you, but I didn't want to risk losing you before I could hold you," Lina confessed. Elias' eyes filled with conflicted emotion. "And yet I told Karim I couldn't have a child with you." The words fell hard, fracturing the fragile peace. Lina's breath hitched. "Why? Why would you say that if you knew?" His face twisted with guilt and frustration. "Because I didn't know how to be the man you needed me to be. Because despite everything, I feared the burden, our future, my family's expectations, the life I might lose." Lina's voice sharpened, piercing through the fog of confusion. "But I am your future too, Elias. This child is part of that. If you cannot accept that, then I don't know where that leaves us." His hands clenched into fists. "I want to accept it. I want to love you and this child. But I am scared that I'll fail you both, that I'll lose myself." Tears gathered unbidden at the edges of Lina's eyes. "Fear doesn't give you permission to hurt me. I need more than fear. I need truth and commitment. I need you present fully." He swallowed, voice raw. "I promise you, Lina, I will try. Not just for you, for this child. I want to do better, but the road will be difficult." Their eyes locked in a silent pact, fragile, yet real. The days that followed were a crucible of emotions. Elias sought out Karim's counsel, struggling to confront both his internal fears and the expectations pressing down from his family. At the same time, Lina wrestled with her own doubts, confiding sometimes in Amina, sometimes alone in her room draped in twilight shadows. The community around them began to sense the change. Whispers floated in the market, subtle glances at gatherings. The weight of culture, with its unyielding traditions, proud customs, and rigid expectations, pressed inexorably upon them both. Lina felt the isolation keenly. At the weekly women's circle, older women offered sharp smiles, their voices laced with warnings veiled as advice. "You should be careful, child," one said softly while pressing the backs of her hands together. "Not all promises can be kept. Sometimes it is better to guard your heart against those who waver." Lina nodded silently, the sting of their words mingling with the wisdom behind them. She knew the path ahead would be far from easy. One evening Elias arrived late, shoulders heavy, eyes haunted. Lina had prepared dinner, a simple meal of spiced rice, roasted lamb, and fresh vegetables picked from her mother's garden. He stood silently watching her move about the kitchen. Finally, his voice broke the quiet. "You are so strong, Lina. Stronger than I ever imagined." She toned, forcing a smile. "I had to be." He reached out, but she stepped back, a reflex against the unpredictability of his turmoil. "I am trying, Lina," he said, voice pleading, trying not to let fear control me. She nodded slowly, the fracture line still visible but the possibility of healing beginning to shimmer faintly. Over the ensuing weeks, their relationship became a battleground of hope and doubt. Small acts of tenderness, the gentle brush of a hand, an unexpected smile, were shadowed by longer stretches of silence and suspicion. In moments alone, Lina rehearsed her own questions. Could she forgive? Could she trust Elias again? Could their child be born into a home fractured by broken promises? Or could they forge a new beginning from the ruins? Elias, too, faced his own demons, late-night arguments with his father, secret visits to counselors and friends, moments of overwhelming despair and flashes of fierce determination. The chapter ends on the cusp of a pivotal moment. The couple stand before the threshold of a significant event, a traditional family gathering where truths will surface and decisions that will define their future must be confronted head-on. The unspoken words threaten to spill into the open, and both Lina and Elias must decide what they truly want and what they are willing to fight for. The morning sun spilled over the city's rooftops like molten gold, bathing the narrow streets in an almost sacred warmth. But inside the walls of Lina's family home, the air was thick with anticipation and unspoken fears. Today was a day of reckoning, a traditional gathering that her family held each year to honor their ancestors and to renew bonds within the extended kin. Lina draped a deep indigo headscarf over her curls, the fabric soft against her skin but heavy with meaning. Each fold was a quiet prayer against the turbulence she carried inside. Amina, her mother, moved beside her, arranging the cloth with a gentle but firm touch. "You are like your grandmother today," Amina said softly, "strong and radiant, even when the storm rages." Lina nodded, knowing that strength would be a necessary shield. The gathering would bring together elders whose gazes weighed not just on her, but on Elias and the fragile web of their future. The courtyard outside was alive with the hum of conversation, women in bright embroidered dresses chatting quietly, the clinking of cups filled with sweet mint tea, and the low undertone of prayers murmured in reverence. Elias arrived just as the ceremony began, his presence a quiet shock against the vibrant tapestry of color and sound. He wore a sharp, tailored garment that seemed both an armor and a relic of obligation. The elders greeted him with nods, some polite, others carrying the burden of judgment. His father was among them, distant but watchful. Lina's heart hammered as she greeted relatives with measured smiles and whispered hellos. The child inside her kicked softly, a rhythm of life and hope amid the expectations and traditions. She spotted Karim across the courtyard, his calm presence a small comfort, and gave him a brief nod. He reciprocated with a look that spoke of solidarity and solemn understanding. The ceremony began with prayers led by the village elder, a woman whose voice carried the weight of centuries. Her words invoked the spirits of ancestors who had borne hardship and joy alike, pleading for their guidance and blessing on the family's future. As incense smoke wound upward in slow spirals, Lina felt the pressure of history weigh heavily on her shoulders. After the formal prayers, the gathering moved to sharing memories and stories, a ritual remembering that bound the living to the past. One elder woman, fierce and sharp-eyed, pulled Lina aside. "You carry great responsibility, child," she said quietly. "Your secret is no secret to many. The way of women is long, and the path is perilous for those who walk it without honor." Lina swallowed the lump forming in her throat, nodding as she steeled herself against the judgment lurking beneath kindness. Elias found himself seated beside his father, the silence between them thick with words left unspoken. "I heard," his father began, voice brittle yet commanding, "about the child. You must do right by the family." Elias exhaled, the weight of legacy pressing down. "I intend to," he said through clenched teeth, "but I need time to understand what that means." His father's gaze hardened. Time is a luxury few men of this family have. Later, Lina and Elias found a quiet corner away from the crowd. Their hands found each other, fingers entwined as if to link two worlds. "We cannot escape who we are or where we come from," Elias whispered. "But perhaps we can choose where we go from here." Lina squeezed his hand, courage blooming anew. "For this child, for us, we must." As the sun dipped below the horizon, the gathering ended with a feast, plates heaped with spiced meats, fragrant rice, and sweetbreads. The air was thick with music and laughter, but beneath the surface, Lina and Elias both felt the weight of what lay ahead. The morning after the gathering broke over the city with an uneasy calm. The streets were alive with the rituals of daily life, vendors hawking fresh fruit, the rhythmic pounding of fabric in the laundry yards, the steady hum of motorbikes weaving through traffic. But beneath it all, Lina felt a deep unrest that refused to be quelled. She woke early, the sunlight spilling onto her skin though the curtains barely stirred. Inside her, the baby moved with a soft insistence, a quiet counterpoint to the chaos of her thoughts. Today was not a day for respite, but for decisions. Her mother's words from the night before echoed persistently in her mind. You carry not just a child, Lina, you carry our history. The weight of those words settled hard on her shoulders. In the sharp morning light, Elias arrived unannounced at Lina's family home. His face was drawn, the usual confident mask absent, replaced by a vulnerability that startled her. He had been distant of late, lost in the storms of his own fears. But today, the distance had narrowed to urgency. They met in the small courtyard garden beneath the towering fig tree, its ancient branches casting dappled shade. Lina, Elias began, voice low and hesitant, I've been thinking about what your mother said at the gathering, about how our past shapes us, but doesn't have to control us. She studied him, the man she had loved and feared all at once. What are you saying? That I want to face this, our child, our future, not just what the family expects, but because it's what we choose. A flicker of hope sparked inside her chest. And what choice would that be? To stand together, Elias replied. To build a home where fear doesn't rule. Her breath caught. The words were the balm she had longed for, but the wounds ran deeper than promises. That afternoon, Elias visited Karim, needing guidance more urgently than ever before. Karim's small flat was cluttered with books, photographs, and the lingering scent of coffee. He looked up as Elias entered, the seriousness in his eyes matching Elias' own. You sound different, Karim said, gesturing to the worn couch. What's changed? The gathering, Lina's family, and my father. The pressure is tremendous, but I'm beginning to see it differently. Good, Karim nodded. But it's not just seeing, Elias. It's acting. You can't keep running from who you are or pretending you're someone else. Elias ran a hand through his hair. I'm scared I'll disappoint them all. Karim leaned forward. Then make your own path. Create the legacy you want, not just the one you inherited. Elias absorbed the words, a measure of determination settling in his gaze. Back in Lina's family home, a different battle was taking shape. Her aunt, a woman of fierce conviction and traditional views, had voiced her doubts quietly but clearly. You must be careful, Lina, she warned during an evening meal. Our community watches closely. A child born without clear commitment can bring shame. Lina felt the sting of those words as they pierced the festive air. I love Elias, she said firmly, and I believe he wants to stand with me. Her aunt's gaze did not soften. Belief is not always enough. You must be prepared for the trials ahead. The room fell into a strange silence. Days passed with glimmers of tenderness and stretches of cold distance between Lina and Elias. They were like two travelers on a fractured bridge, moving closer and apart in turn. One evening, under the pale light of a crescent moon, they sat together on the rooftop terrace. I don't want to hide anymore, Lina whispered. From you, from my family, from myself. Elias nodded slowly. Then we stopped pretending. We face it all, together. Their hands found each other, fingers weaving a fragile promise. Yet beneath this fragile hope, fault lines were deepening. The whispers in the market grew louder. The weight of cultural expectation pressed on Elias' shoulders, and Lina's heart ached with uncertainty. Could love endure the fractures? Could a future be forged from the jagged pieces of their past? Only time would tell. The city had shifted subtly in the early days of spring, the air warming with promise but carrying with it the nuances of change. Lina moved through her days wrapped in a hesitant cocoon, the child within her growing steadily, the conversations with Elias laced with newfound honesty, and yet the fabric of their relationship still frayed beneath the surface. She stood on the terrace of a family home, gazing out over the maze of roofs and winding streets. The horizon held the glitter of possibility, but her thoughts were tangled with uncertainty. Could love rebuild what suspicion and fear had chipped away at? Could forgiveness truly heal the deepest fractures? Her phone vibrated, A message from Elias. "Can we talk tonight? There's something I need to say." That evening, under the sheltering arms of the fig tree in the courtyard, Elias waited. His eyes held a quiet storm as Lina approached, careful footsteps stirring the fallen leaves. "Elias," she greeted quietly. "Lina," he responded, voice laden with the gravity of what was to come. "I've been wrestling with the past, with my doubts, my fears, but also with what I want for our family." She nodded, heart beating fiercely. "I want to be honest with you," Elias said, reaching for her hand. "I went through my father's old letters to his wife, his fears, his regrets. I realize I've been fighting not just him, but generations of pain." The revelation softened the space between them. "I'm ready to let go of the ghosts," he continued, "ready to be the man you and our child deserve." Tears welled in Lina's eyes, a mix of relief and lingering hurt. "I want that too," she whispered. "But it will take time, Elias. Time and patience." Outside, the voices of the city rose with nighttime prayers, and the scent of frankincense curled in the wind. They talked late into the night, their confessions merging with the rhythms of home and history, two souls seeking reconciliation. The following week brought news that rippled through their families and community alike. Lina's cousin, a fiery spirit known for her outspoken nature, confronted the elders at a council meeting, demanding acceptance and understanding for Lina and Elias as they faced the path ahead together. The boldness of her words sparked both admiration and resistance. Old wounds opened, but so did doors for dialogue. Back home, Lina's aunt softened, the lines of her face less rigid when she spoke to Lina alone. "I see now," she said quietly, "how love can rebuild even what seemed broken beyond repair." The embrace they shared was brief but charged with a new hope. In this fragile landscape of tradition and change, Lina and Elias found themselves at a crossroads, the future uncertain yet bright with possibility. Their journey was far from over, but beneath the weight of the past and the gaze of community, they had taken a step toward healing. The dawn broke gently over the city, spilling light onto the winding streets and stirring softly against the walls of Lina's family home. The air was thick with the scent of ripe mangoes and freshly baked bread, an aroma of home, endurance, and renewal. Inside, Lina sat quietly by the window, her hand resting protectively over the curve of her belly. The months had carved a new strength into her, a blend of tenderness and fierce determination. Today felt different, charged with the urgency and hope that come with endings and beginnings. Elias arrived shortly, carrying a bouquet of jasmine, the flower of their early days, fragrant and delicate. He paused at the threshold, breathing deeply to steady the ache of remorse and longing that still lingered beneath his calm exterior. Their eyes met across the room, the unspoken history between them unfolding in the silent space. Without a word, Lina rose and crossed to him, the distance between them vanishing like the night. "You're here," she said simply. He smiled, a fragile curve touched with relief. "I'm here. For you, for the child, for us." Together, they stepped outside into the morning light. The city stirred awake around them, the sounds of children's laughter echoing like a promise. The families gathered soon after, drawn by news of Lina's advanced pregnancy. The air was charged, anticipation mingled with lingering tensions, but also with the unmistakable warmth of community coming together. Amina embraced Elias, her eyes shining with quiet approval. "You have chosen well," she said softly. As the sun climbed higher, the elders gathered to bless Lina and Elias, invoking the spirits of their ancestors and the strength of the lineage they now embodied. The prayers swirled around them like a protective cloak, woven from old traditions and new hopes. Lina felt the child stir within her, a tiny heartbeat carrying the promise of futures unwritten, resilience forged from fracture, and love born anew. Later, as the evening descended, Lina and Elias stood beneath the mango tree in her mother's courtyard. The night was filled with the music of crickets, the flicker of lanterns, and the scent of blooming flowers. Elias took Lina's hand, his voice a soft vow in the warm night air. "Whatever comes, we face it together." Her smile was radiant with quiet strength. Together, she agreed. The journey ahead was uncertain, woven with complexities beyond their control. But in that moment, under the wide canopy of stars, Lina and Elias chose to step forward. Imperfect, yet united. A new chapter had begun, one written not just with shadows of the past, but with a light of hope, courage, and love. Hello, family. Kindly share with us your thoughts, comments, or opinion. We'd be glad to hear from you on these stories. Thanks for watching Stories with Pablo. Please subscribe and leave us a like. It means a lot to us. You can also share this video with your friends and loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss our future videos. Thank you for doing so.